Hey, Cavs fans, Spencer German, Spencer Davies, Spencer Squared.
Midnight.
We're back again. Yeah, midnight edition. Very, very late night, but it's for a good reason. We were sort of talking before we came and did this, Spence, like so much just content in general, I think, out of tonight's game.
100%.
You had Evan Mobley coming back. You had a huge win, 118-108 over the Clippers, who coming into tonight had won 5 straight. They just took the boots to Boston a couple nights ago. Like, this team was playing really, really good basketball, and the Cavs came out and sort of shut them down and played a really, really good game. So a lot of different things that we can kind of get to and touch on, but let's start with the fact that, like I just said, this Clippers team has been playing some phenomenal basketball, and they came here, and this Cavs defense stifling against them. You get Evan Mobley back in the rotation, and he was obviously helping the cause as well. But just what were your overall observations, I guess, in a game with two teams that are playing or were very, very hot coming in?
Yeah, no, it's a heavyweight bout. Before the game, JB Bickerstaff was talking about it. Both teams, Cavs, number 1 defense since December 1st. Clippers, number 1 offense since December 1st. So it was a battle of the heavyweights. And I'll tell you what, it did not disappoint. It was a back and forth affair. Even though the Clippers didn't have quite as much rhythm as the Cavaliers did, the Cavs definitely were getting up and down, got early fast break points. You know, the threes weren't falling, but they were getting into the paint, spraying out. And I thought it was just a phenomenal effort defensively from all the guys. I'm talking about Dean Wade, the job he did on Kawhi Leonard. Obviously, Isaac Okoro, who Donovan Mitchell was making a huge case for to be on the all-defensive team post-game in multitude of ways.
He stole the show. If you were watching the broadcast at home and you stayed for the post-game on Bally, he stole the show. He took the microphone. He was trying to interview Isaac Okoro about it. It was hilarious.
He did. I got that for us, too, on our website, so on our YouTube channel. But it's an amazing effort defensively. And the thing that stuck out to me the most, though, was you look at a guy like James Harden, you look at a guy like Paul George, those two combined for 20 shots. Yeah. Think about that. Those are all-star caliber guys who usually have very high usage, who always are taking an aggressive path, but they couldn't get a shot off tonight because they couldn't get the ball. And whenever they had the ball, they had to give it up to their other teammates. And Kawhi Leonard dominated the attempts. He had 25 tonight.
Yeah.
But
30
James
points.
James Harden had 9. Paul George had 11. I think he missed his first 6 shots. It's crazy how that worked like that. But again, credit Isaac Okoro, credit Dean Wade. And I think you also have to credit guys like George Niang and Karis LeVert for the job they did in denying the ball and forcing give-ups. I think that's the big part on the defensive end.
Yeah, and the defense was the identity of this team the last couple of years. Early in the season, that was a problem. Like they weren't playing with that same intensity. The defense just wasn't there. But during the stretch, they've gotten that back. And in a game like this tonight, against, like you said, a really good Clippers team, another stat that we talked about during the game was that the Clippers entered tonight top 3-point shooting team in the NBA, 39% they're making. Granted, they had a bad night shooting the 3 against Boston and still won by a lot. I think they were 10 for 40, I think you mentioned. So maybe they're in a little bit of a rut here from shooting beyond the arc. But in the same vein, you have to give the Cavaliers defense a lot of credit for slowing those guys down. They can come at you from so many different ways. You got the James Harden step back. You got Paul George who can get downhill. You got Kawhi Leonard who can hit from basically anywhere on the floor. We saw him hit a couple really, really impressive shots.
Norman Powell hit 4. Yeah. He's always a threat too. I mean,
but yeah, I think, and you was a big talking point for you after the game with everybody who we did interviews with, just denying the ball, getting in those lanes and clogging it up. Can't say enough about that side of the ball and how they did, especially with Evan Mobley back out there on the floor.
100%. And I think with Evan back out there, now you're going to see the defensive effort pick up a little bit. Not to say the defensive effort, but the schematics of the whole thing, and having a defensive player of the year candidate back on the team. It just makes it, a whole lot easier on the rest of the guys. And Jared Allen was even talking about it too. A lot of the game plan tonight was to funnel Kawhi Leonard into him. Instead of just trying to drop back and make sure that the guys on the perimeter were doing their job. The perimeter guys were making him go to the middle, and Jared Allen was having to pick up Kawhi, and I think he did a solid job too. And as Jarrett's always done in one-on-one situations, he's just terrific at switching and really getting into guys. And that's what the Cavs are. When Jared Allen and Evan Mobley are switching on the guys who think that they can beat them, they usually don't get beat. And it's just the case. It's been the case since they've been together, and it's really fun to watch. And, looking at the other end of the ball, too, I think when the Cavs were getting into their rhythm, I'm looking at Donovan Mitchell, man. Donovan Mitchell, the job that he's done since Darius Garland's gone down as the faux starting point guard, so to speak, has been tremendous. And it's hysterical to me that a lot of people call this guy a ball hog, and he has a 12-2 assist to turnover ratio tonight, and he's getting into the paint, spraying out to the corners. He's pushing the ball up the floor off of rebounds. He's getting into all of these actions, and he's not the guy shooting the ball sometimes. No, he has to stay aggressive because that's who Donovan Mitchell is. And there are going to be possessions where he pulls up for three with 20 seconds left on the shot clock, 1-on-5, because that happens. That's just what scorers do. Sometimes it works. But for the majority of these possessions, since DG's gone down and he's stepped up into that one role, he's been getting his teammates involved. He's been doing it with some ridiculously nice passes. The one behind the back that Isaac Okoro didn't finish. So holy crap, man.
It's one of those ones where they have to finish it for it to really feel as good as it would have been.
Right. But it was insane. That was an insane
it's interesting because Mitchell kind of brought this up after the game. Just the streak that they've been on, even with those guys out. I think they're 15-4 now since the injuries were announced back on December 15th. And you get Evan back tonight, which we'll get to here in a second. But he mentioned, there's a lot of people around the league who are probably watching. They're just like, oh, well, the Cavs were just winning because of Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah.
And he's like, but that's not it. And to your point, I think tonight was a game where you realized, no, it's not just because of Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell's a big part of it, but him dishing it out and other guys hitting shots is why this team is where it is, why they're playing such good basketball. And now it's about getting Evan and Darius Garland kind of reacclimated to this group as they return to the court. It sounds like Darius Garland's going to be back Wednesday, maybe. That's
JB said extremely.
He said extremely close. That's about as extremely close.
Is a pretty good indicator.
That's the next game, so I'm guessing that's as extremely close as it gets. What did you think of Evan tonight, though? Because that is, I think, the next big question that looms large for this team. What is this? How does this team keep playing the way that it has when you get a guy like Evan Mobley back on the floor who hasn't really proven to be much of a floor spacer at this point in his career? And then what does that then look like further with Darius Garland back? They keep saying it's going to be fine. It might be some growing pains, but they'll figure it out. They know what they're doing. But I think there are fans and us who cover the team who kind of want to see it in action before we really know for sure.
Stylistically, I think there will be a few threes less, just because that's just kind of how it goes. But I thought it was interesting that JB Bickerstaff was saying in his pregame press conference about Evan taking 4 to 5 threes a game, possibly, if teams are going to sag off. And that you can tell that they're going to be growing pains there, right? Because Evan's not.
He's going to have to start hitting.
Evan's not a jump shooter. And I thought the most interesting part was that JB said he should have the freedom to take them, but Evan's just one of those guys that's so selfless that he hesitates a little because he's always looking for the next play. And if you're looking for the next play, that means you're not just catching and shooting like a Sam Merrill would, like a Max Strus would, right? So that kind of stylistically kind of probably changes a little bit for Evan Mobley in his mind a little. And when Darius Garland comes back, he's looking for that. Darius and Donovan, I'm interested to see how much we see of Darius Garland off the ball, maybe kind of what, you look at what Sam Merrill's done off the ball, right? And he's curling off of these screens up top from the bigs, and Donovan's finding them, or the bigs are doing the dribble handoffs to Sam Merrill. Do we see some of that with Darius Garland? We know he can play the pick and roll. We know he can do the things that get into the paint, and the lob passes that Donovan said that they miss because Donovan can't do good lobs. But I'm interested to see if they get Darius off the ball a little bit more. Let Donovan, kind of handle that load a little bit. Even though Donovan did admit that the fatigue definitely has been settling in a little bit as far as that usage goes, and as far as being the kind of number one maestro. But having those two back in the fold, what a great problem to have. That's why I don't understand the angst. The angst. They've won 10 out of 11 games, and they've been world beaters in January. They've just been completely buzzed off.
Well, and the hope is this team's kind of found its identity, especially on the offensive end.
Mm-hmm.
And that reinserting those guys now makes that process easier and better, and they're a better team, and they don't regress back to what they were in the beginning of the season. So we'll see how that certainly plays out here as these guys get reacclimated. I thought Mobley, he played right within that 20 to 24 minute range that JB Bickerstaff promised. He was 10 points, 9 rebounds, one shy of a double-double, which he would have joined. Obviously, Jared Allen had a 15th straight double-double. He had 20 and 17, and the 20. We gotta mention that his 19th and 20th points came on that last second alley-oop dunk at the end of the game. a lot of people out there that probably bet the under on this game, and that did not happen tonight. Unfortunately,
that was a bad one.
Yeah,
that was a bad beat.
That was a bad beat.
Bad beat.
It was a bad beat. And Donovan Mitchell, who also had a double-double, 28 points, 12 assists, to what we kind of alluded to earlier. But yeah, I mean, I thought there's, and JB said it, like there's probably a little bit of rust from Mobley, just kind of getting his feet back underneath him. It's going to take some time here. But yeah, this week with Garland potentially coming back Wednesday, it sure sounds that way. From here, it's just about making sure finding where those guys fit. And if we're trusting Donovan Mitchell's words, he said, we know what we're doing. So I think it should bode well for this team moving forward, and Cavs fans should have a lot to be excited about.
100%. And, you mentioned him and being kind of rusty. I mean, he had a couple travels, right? Yeah. Like when he caught the ball on the block, couple turnovers. But then you saw the possession where he grabs a rebound on one end, goes all the way on his own, beats everybody down the floor, and slams it with a left hand. And what did we talk about earlier in the season, Spence? When we were talking about Evan Mobley and how everyone wants him to be Chet Holmgren? Well, that looked like Giannis to me. So that's a pretty good. I'm just being that
pretty
guy.
Good consolation prize if you're not going to beat Chet Holmgren.
I'm just saying that looked a whole lot like a Giannis possession to me. And obviously he's put on a little bit of muscle too while he's been out. Evan talked about it too, being kind of a blessing in disguise, to let the team kind of figure out its identity, as you mentioned earlier. And now you're going to bring in two of your core four back with that confidence. And it's going to take sacrifice. We're not going to see as much Craig Porter Jr. We're probably not going to see as much Sam Merrill. We're probably not going to see as much of these guys.
There's always going to be the fans who, when things aren't going right,
the backup quarterback.
Where's Sam Merrill?
The backup quarterback.
I got a prescription, or I got a fever, and the only prescription is more Sam Merrill. That's what the people are going to say.
Well, he needs to be in the rotation. Yeah. But tonight, he only played 7 minutes. That's the least amount. I don't have the book in front of me, but I know that's the least amount he's played in a couple weeks at least. So that it's going to be dependent on matchups, and that's just how the NBA and basketball is. But I'm excited to see how Sam works with some of these new guys too. But he's not going to be playing 20 minutes a game, guys. It's just not going to happen.
And I think you mentioned it, but I think the silver lining in Garland and Mobley's injuries, I think largely is that you got guys like Sam Merrill experience, and when it comes playoff time, when you got to make those adjustments and you got to get some guys quick minutes on the floor, it's going to be invaluable to have those guys that now have actual playing time in games. And that's where I think a game like this matters, because I know the story with the Cavs this season is, well, I want to see it in the playoffs before I really believe it, right? Mm-hmm. And we know that a lot of fans are going to feel that way, and I think that's valid. Like, we got to see this thing in action where it matters most. But a game like tonight, a statement win against that team, and on top of it, you get a lot of guys' experience during the stretch. I think it's all boding well for when you get to that stage, things are hopefully going to be different this time around.
Yeah, and I think another thought that comes to mind too is a lot of people thought that might have been a product of the schedule this entire run, right? Well, you went into Orlando, you won. You split in Milwaukee, and now you just beat the Clippers, right? I think that's a heck of a stretch there, and I think it proves that this isn't, some fraud that we're seeing. This is legitimately the type of basketball they're playing, and they're getting shots up. They're defending really well, and I mean, again, a lot of credit going to Isaac Okoro on that. But it's a legit basketball team, and Donovan kind of said it funny. He kind of alluded to it. He's like, I don't want to sound like a smartass, but we've seen this work before, so it shouldn't come as a surprise that it's working now. Yeah. It's going to be fun to kind of watch and see it unfold. We'll see how it goes going into the All-Star break, and then you have the home stretch after the break. But still quite a bit of basketball before we get to Indianapolis.
For sure. But the good news, guys, Cavs are getting healthy at the right time. They're getting these guys back, Mobley, Garland, chance to really mold and round into form as they get to that home stretch of the season and we start talking about playoffs. So as always, we appreciate you guys jumping on with us. I know we went a little long, but there was a lot to unpack tonight.
Spencer Square midnight, man. Who cares?
I think
court behind us.
I think in general, Spencer Square just always goes a little long. We were a little long-winded. We always got good points to make. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and you can enjoy more content like this at the Cavs Insider YouTube page, and of course over at CavsInsider.com.